since. On the political side, Britain, we know from the British Foreign Office records, Colonial Office records, which have been declassified, they developed a system which, in fact, the U.S. has taken over. The idea was that the oil-producing states would be administered by what the British called an Arab, secretly, of course, what they called an Arab façade, constitutional fictions behind which Britain would continue to rule. Now, the façade has to be weak because it has to be dependable, has to do what you tell it. But then there's a problem, because if the façade is weak, it may not be able to control its own population. And its own population is uncivilized and ignorant. They do not understand. They can be easily infected by what's called a virus of radical nationalism, which was defined by the State Department back in the 1940s as the belief that the first beneficiaries of a country's resources ought to be the people of that country. And that, of course, is intolerable, because any sane and civilized person can understand that the first beneficiaries of a country's resources have to be wealthy investors in the United States and so on. So these people just don't understand that, and they're always causing trouble. They're uncivilized tribesmen and so on, and sometimes poison gas doesn't work. So you have to have some way of keeping the Arab façade in power. And to do that, as the U.S. developed the system, there's two levels of violence required. Actually, this is all over the world. I mean, much of the history of the last half century is the playing out of this issue in Southeast Asia and Latin America and the Middle East and all over. It's not put that way, but that's the way it is. In the Middle East, the way it was worked out is that there are to be what the Nixon administration called local cops on the beat. That is, local gendarmes who sort of keep order in the neighborhood. And it's best to have them be non-Arab. They do better at killing recalcitrant Arabs. So there's a periphery of, in fact, what David ben-Gurion, Israeli prime minister, called the periphery policy of non-Arab states, Iran under the Shah, Turkey, Israel, Pakistan. They're there to be the local cops on the beat. The understanding, of course, is that police headquarters remains in Washington, and if things really get out of hand, the local cops on the beat can't handle it. There's British and U.S. muscle and reserve to be used when needed. That's essentially the modality of control. If you look at the structure of the system of control, you can determine very quickly how policy works. Participants have rights which are commensurate with their role in the system. So the United States has rights by definition. The junior partner has rights as long as it stays loyal. Same with the Arab façade, and the same with the local gendarmes. What about the peasants in Iraq or people in the slums of Cairo? Well, they don't contribute to the system, so they have no rights. What about the Palestinians? Well, they actually have negative rights. The reason is that they're a disruptive element. The fact that they were displaced arouses nationalist feelings and causes problems for the façade and the gendarmes and the attack dog. So therefore, their rights are negative. Well, from these are just kind of elementary principles of statecraft. You master those, you can predict very easily the way policy develops, and it works quite well. The end of the Cold War changed nothing, and that was well understood. So one of the leading Israeli strategic analysts, formerly head of military intelligence, Shlomo Gazit, about a year after the end of the Cold War, wrote that Israel's main task has not changed at all, and it remains of central importance. Israel remains of central importance as the devoted guardian of stability in the region. Its role is to protect the existing regimes, namely the façade, to prevent radicalization. That's accurate. You have to do a little translation. So stability means U.S. control, and Israel is the devoted guardian of the control of the master, and it's amply paid for its service. Radicalism means misunderstanding of who the first beneficiaries of a country's resources are. And fundamentalist religious zealotry does not Our opposite is that does not entail that we have to say bomb Saudi Arabia or bomb Jerusalem or bomb most of the United States, which is the most extreme, radical, fundamentalist religious state in the world, I suppose. Rather, what it means is this is a code word, which means the particular forms of radicalization, that is, failure to understand who the first beneficiaries are, the particular forms of radicalization that happen to take a religious cast when secular nationalism is destroyed. That's a pretty common pattern.